I've come to one of the most infamous Famicom games. Or at least infamous for people outside of Japan. People know the game for one thing, and you can already see it right there on the box. Square's Tom Sawyer has racist caricatures. And not just, we weren't sure how to draw someone of African descent, so we have something that kind of resembles something awful. This is just straight out of some of the worst material out there. And it's frustrating because the racism here is really the only thing wrong with Tom Sawyer. Okay, only is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. But this is one of the most creative RPGs we've seen on the Famicom. Strangely, it's only Jim who has that appearance. There's other African American characters who don't get that kind of design. And while understanding of the problematic nature of that character design has penetrated Japanese consciousness, at the time, one game magazine turned that picture of Jim into a kind of mascot. Obviously, the game is based on the Mark Twain novel, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Though, just like the previous Tom Sawyer game that we've seen on the Famicom, it's a very loose relationship. The Square game is actually based on an animated version of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer that aired as part of World Masterpiece Theater, the same show that gave us the Little Lord Fauntleroy game. One of the first things you're going to notice is that when you're walking around and exploring, the action takes place in a kind of angled view, similar to what beat-em-ups have. And sometimes there will be gaps in the background or foreground that you can pass through to go to a different scene. The entire world is presented like this, and you'll run around exploring small-town America and the forest, which happen to be full of angry animals that will attack you. The viewpoint also lets rooms that you go into feel more natural. This looks like a room that somebody's inhabiting, not just a box with a bare floor that you go into and out of. As you're exploring, you hit the A button to talk with people, and some of them will offer to join your group, or might have items that you're required to collect for your quest. You can have up to 3 people join Tom, and you're able to kick them back out of your party if you need to. There's even some personal conflicts that will prevent some people from joining if other people are already in your party. There is no money or equipment in Tom Sawyer, but you do have an inventory. In fact, there's a separate inventory for everyone, although Tom has double the item slots of anyone else. As you're walking around, you can hit the B button to bring up a special menu, but it doesn't work like the menu in other RPGs. Here, you've got 4 directions. You can search, take, use an item, or dig. Hitting select will bring up a party menu, and it uses that same kind of 4-direction menu. The party menu is where you can set up people's special abilities. To do that, one character has to be the teacher, the other has to be the pupil. This paired grouping always is a special attack that does damage, and you get to name your own special attack. You can't see your experience on the character screen, but you are earning it as you fight battles. You just don't level up until you rest someplace. And that's proper resting, not using Tom's tent. The tent item is used to save the game, but it doesn't restore health. When you get into combat while you're exploring, you'll see that enemies appear way off in the distance. You'll only get a good look at them for a moment when they attack you. The combat commands are similar to what you've seen before. Fight, use item, or run away. There's also a spot for the killer technique that you can gain by pairing up your team. Your enemies start out as wild animals, but toward the end of the game you'll be encountering a lot crazier things than that. There's one especially infamous enemy in the game who attacks you by hitting the reset button. And that's the reset button on the Famicom. If the attack succeeds, then you're back at the title screen. In terms of game structure, well, it's pretty loose. While you can talk to people and follow the storyline, there's really nothing stopping you from just going wherever you want. There's only a handful of points in the story that require that you trigger an event. Otherwise, it's happy to just let you continue on. A gameplay problem with Square's Tom Sawyer is that the encounter rate is super high. It's not uncommon to leave a fight and then immediately be thrown back into another one. As a game, there's a lot to like in Tom Sawyer. A lot of the design choices feel like they came out of a game 10 years later than it. But then there's that one massive, glaring problem. A show about video games isn't going to hammer out the ethical challenges of engaging with creative works that also lean on bigotry. Even if we talk about the original novel, we might be able to forgive the depiction of Jim given that for the time it was progressive, though there are other aspects of the novel that were not. You're going to have to decide for yourself if you're willing to tolerate such blatant racism in a game from 1989, regardless of any other qualities.